Today, Sci-Finatics Live co-host David takes a deep dive into Balance of Terror, one of Star Trek the original series' most iconic episodes. Uncover fascinating behind-the-scenes details and hidden insights that make this legendary story a fan favourite.
Hey everyone, I'm David and welcome back to Sci-Finatics for another deep dive dust-off. Today we'll be covering the Star Trek the original series episode, Balance of Terror, which was the 14th episode of Season 1. This iconic episode marks the introduction of the Romulans, explores themes of war, race and suspense, is praised by critics, and a definite fan favourite. It was also revisited in an alternative timeline in the Strange New Worlds episode A Quality of Mercy. So, let's crack into it. In this episode, we see the introduction of the Romulans, a race of Vulcanoids who have a history of conflict with the Federation. We see the Enterprise encounter a cloaked Romulan warship known as a bird of prey in a high-stakes cat-and-mouse game which could shape the future of two spacefaring civilizations. It explores themes such as the nature of conflict, the dangers of escalation, and ultimately the futility of war. It's also a tale of two captains, pitting Kirk against a worthy Romulan opponent in a battle of ideals and wits, but it also explores where they share some common ground in the end. This episode marks the first appearance of Mark Leonard to the Star Trek franchise, who went on to play Spock's father Sarek, and of course the Klingon captain in the motion picture. It also explores themes of bigotry and actively challenges them within the episode narrative. The episode title could be linked back to a phrase likely coined by Canadian diplomat and politician Lester B. Pearson, who said back in 1955, the balance of terror was succeeded by the balance of power, which was referring to the Cold War nuclear standoff between the USA and the Soviet Union. The balance of terror element meant nuclear war was unwinnable for either superpower due to MAD or mutually assured destruction, and this fear prevented direct conflict between those powers, and nuclear weapons also weren't used in anger as a result since 1945. Writer Paul Schneider collaborated with Gene Roddenberry on crafting this story. Schneider provided the core concept of a space battle and a neutral zone dispute, while Roddenberry offered suggestions that sort of helped the story along its way to flesh it out. The story draws heavily on the 1957 war classic The Enemy Below, which transposed, the submarine warfare dynamics into a science fiction setting. This wasn't surprising given World War II was less than a generation old at that stage and offered some good material to work with. The core narrative sees a tense, strategic cat-and-mouse battle between the Enterprise and the cloaked Romulan bird of prey, mirroring the destroyer and the submarine conflict in The Enemy Below. Both narratives emphasise tactical manoeuvring to gain advantage, with each captain attempting to outwit the other. The cloaked Romulan bird of prey's behaviour, in particular, aligns, to the submarine tropes of the time, relying on surprise and stealth to inflict damage on the enemy. Beyond the tactical similarities, Balance of Terror also shares thematic parallels with The Enemy Below. Both stories explore the psychological strain of command during wartime, the weight of duty, and the concept of honour even between adversaries. The captains, despite their opposing roles, develop a grudging respect for each other's skill and professionalism, recognising the difficult decisions that they each have to make. Both stories also use the environment to hide and gain advantage, with Balance of Terror utilising space phenomenon like comet tails in the place of the ocean depths to hide in. While episode director Vincent McVitie acknowledged the clear influence of The Enemy Below after a connection was pointed out, basically saying it's the same story, another submarine film, Run Silent, Run Deep, may have also contributed to the episode's plot. There's shared themes of vengeance and deceptive tactics being used in this case, such as the use of debris or bodies to mislead an opposing ship, and that appears to have had an influence on this episode. Paul Schneider is credited with creating the Romulans, drawing inspiration from the ancient Roman civilization. While some mistakenly attribute the creation of the Romulans to Gene Kuhn, those present during the episode's development, including track veterans John D. F. Black and D.C. Fontana, confirm Schneider's role in this. Schneider established the Romulans' Roman-inspired militaristic culture and named their homeworlds Romulus and Remus after the mythological twin boys raised by a she-wolf who founded the city of Rome in legend. It was like the Roman Empire hadn't fallen and essentially continued on until it became a spacefaring civilization. The Romulans were depicted as physically similar to the Vulcans, sharing pointed ears, and were designed as formidable and mysterious adversaries. Gene Roddenberry approved of the Roman influence, though he initially envisaged them as representing 1960s Chinese communists. The episode starts off with a wedding ceremony, with Angela Martine and Robert Tomlinson in their Starfleet uniforms, and Angela's wearing a floral crown on her head. This is being broadcast shipwide as Captain Kirk officiates over the wedding ceremony. Scotty walks Angela down the aisle, proud as punch, and everything seems joyous and wonderful. What could go wrong? Well, unfortunately, peaceful scene was shattered by a red alert, signaling an attack on Earth Outpost 4 by some unknown vessel, which sees everyone scramble to their action stations as Kirk orders full speed to the outpost. Barbara Beldarvin played Lieutenant Angela Martine. Though cast by her husband as Mary Teller in the next televised episode, which was Shore Leave, Beldarvin's previous role as Angela Martine in Balance of Terror prompted a name change. Despite a brief slip by Shatner in Shore Leave where he calls her Teller, she became Angela Martine. This led to a composite Angela Martine Teller name being used in some reference material. On the Enterprise bridge, we learn that communication's been lost with several Federation outposts, which are based on asteroids established to observe what is called the neutral zone. Spock explains in a ship-wide briefing that this is a buffer zone of space separating the Federation and the Romulan Star Empire, established at the conclusion of a devastating war over a century before. This Earth-Romulan war spanned between 2156 and 2160 and erupted from the Romulan Star Empire's attempts to disrupt the developing alliance of Earth, Vulcan, Andoria, and Teller. This early interstellar conflict was characterized by battles fought at a distance due to the rudimentary space technology that each power used and also primitive atomic weapons. No quarter was given and neither side saw each other. The decisive Battle of Cheron in 2160 forced a Romulan retreat and the Romulan neutral zone was established after some subspace negotiations. The alliances forged during the war paved the way for the United Federation of Planets creation in 2161. Following their defeat, the Romulans withdrew into a century of self-imposed isolation. Kirk adds that he'd been given strict orders that while the Enterprise can defend itself, it was not permitted under any circumstances to violate the neutral zone, for fear of causing another terrible conflict. And to that end, the Enterprise and the outposts were considered expendable. On the star map showing the neutral zone, there's a continuity error, where the planets Romulus and Romy are shown, or Rom2, depending on how you pronounce it, while dialogue from Kirk mentioned these are Romulus and Remus. Initially, Romy, or Rom2, was considered an alternative name for Remus, but Strange New Worlds, a Quality of Mercy episode, retconned this in the background map when Pike was actually meeting with Hansen L. Sulla on Outpost 4, and this established that Romy, or Rom2, was a separate star system distinct from the home system where the twin planets of Romulus and Remus were located. We're then introduced to Lieutenant Styles, who is the Enterprise navigator in this particular episode, played by Paul Comey. He thinks it's got to be the Romulans attacking the outposts and challenges Kirk to take more direct action. Styles seems to come from a family that's been decimated by the Earth-Romulan War previously, and he seems to harbour a deep hatred for the Romulans. Styles' desire for revenge appears to be influenced by the film Run Silent, Run Deep. Spock then confirms that Outposts 2 and 3, including the asteroids they're based on, have been completely pulverised. As the Enterprise makes for Outpost 4, charging up its weapons, we get another look at our almost newlyweds, Lieutenant Martine and Tomlinson, who work in what's called the phaser control room. They seem undiscouraged, but this kind of thing is going to probably end up going south as we kind of know from previous episodes. The phaser control room was a reused engineering set, featuring Scotty's main console from the Naked Time episode as the phaser station. A Commander Hansen, played by Gary Wahlberg, then makes contact with the Enterprise. From the view screen, he looks like he's in a bad way. He seems to be the sole survivor of Outpost 4 after some sort of attack. Hansen confirms that 3 other outposts have been destroyed and that his outpost was attacked by a devastating weapon from a vessel that could make itself disappear, which took out their shields, wrecked the outpost, despite it being located a mile underground through a solid iron asteroid. We then see a space view of the mystery vessel as it materializes and fires a plasma weapon, disintegrating the asteroid, and then the vessel just disappears again. In a deleted scene, Hansen asks the Enterprise to warn Earth that traitors or Romulan spies had stolen starship designs used to build the Romulan bird of prey. This links to a comment by Styles inferring spies infiltrating Starfleet later in the episode, which remained in the final cut. While Hansen was described as a commander in episode dialogue, his uniform didn't show any rank in particular. Stage direction indicated he was to have a singed, bloodied look about him. The final script for Balance of Terror initially portrayed the Romulan bird of prey resembling a modified Constitution class saucer, which supports the stolen Starfleet plans theory. It was meant to feature a dark, hawk-like wing markings and a prominent weapon tube on the front of the vessel. Designer, sculptor, and artist Hua Ming Chang, who was behind the iconic flip-top communicator amongst a plethora of other uncredited contributions to Star Trek, designed and built the 2.5-foot wide Romulan warbird model in a mere 2 weeks. Upon delivery to the studio, they repainted the iconic bird graphic design, which featured prominently on its ventral hull. The studio model was constructed and it was sent to Linwood G. Dunn's Film Effects of Hollywood for studio filming. There, the only footage of the model was shot, ultimately used in the original broadcast episode of Balance of Terror. The original Bird of Prey model strangely disappeared after filming Balance of Terror. Chang later claimed he destroyed the model after a dispute with the prop makers Union and Desilu, possibly contributing to the Romulans' use of the Klingon D7 cruisers in the Enterprise incident. Spock reports that sensors detect an invisible moving object, despite the view screen being blank, leading to him to suspect that a Romulan cloaking device was being used. Kirk theorizes the Romulan ship might also be unaware of their presence, given its very slow movements. In a direct lift from the enemy below, he orders the Enterprise to maintain a parallel course, matching the Romulan vessel move for move. So they'll think that the Enterprise is merely a sensor echo of their own vessel. Styles objects to this, sort of advocating that they intercept the vessel in a more aggressive manner, but Kirk strictly forbids entry into the neutral zone in accordance with his orders. In a harkback to the earlier deleted scene with Hansen, Styles mentions that there could be Romulan spies on board, prompting a security alert. Uhura then intercepts a coded signal from the Romulan vessel, which includes video. And the Federation get their first glimpse of the Romulans, revealing a captain who bears a remarkable resemblance to Spock. Cue the dramatic prairie dog music. All eyes are on Spock in a very awkward, tense situation on the bridge. Styles makes a bit of a sarcastic suggestion that Spock decode the Romulan signal, drawing a sharp rebuke from Kirk, who told him to suppress his biased comments. Balance of Terror confronts bigotry by revealing the prejudice within the Enterprise crew upon the Romulans' introduction to the episode. Styles' hostility towards Spock seems to be based on his shared Vulcanoid appearance with the Romulans and highlights this racial bias going on. Kirk's "no bigotry on the bridge" comment reinforces Star Trek's inclusive future. Spock's heroism, saving Styles later in the episode, also challenges these biases, offering a commentary on overcoming prejudice. As the Enterprise follows the Bird of Prey, we get our first scene with the Romulans on the vessel's bridge. The Bird of Prey script described the Romulan bridge as cramped, red tones, like a cockpit-type room with hooded consoles, with overhead conduits, and a metallic, mechanical atmosphere. Matt Jeffries' set design for the episode, inspired by World War II submarine films, successfully translated this cramped feel, including a periscope-like monitor in the centre of the Romulan bridge. On the Romulan bridge, the commander surmises the Enterprise is shadowing their vessel. He engages in a bit of a thought-provoking discussion with his second-in-command, simply called the Centurion, exploring the ethical complexities of their assigned mission. Subsequently delivers a stern reprimand to a subordinate officer called Decius, who happened to send out a subspace transmission, giving the game away as to where the Bird of Prey was. That gets him demoted by 2 levels, apparently, and the Centurion actually cautions the Romulan commander about doing that because Decius happens to have some powerful political allies, but he does it anyway. Despite his personal reservations about the mission, the commander maintains his composure, assuring the Centurion of his unwavering commitment to fulfilling his duty. The episode script depicted the Romulan commander as a tall, weary-looking man with greying hair, and notably bearing Spock-like ears. He's a seasoned Romulan commander and a veteran of many campaigns, but unusually questioned the ethics of his mission and appears opposed to this particular maneuver into Federation space. And there is talk of him being named Keris in some expanded universe material, but that's just sounds like Sarek backwards, I think, so it could be a bit of a ploy there. John Warburton played the Romulan Centurion, who appears to be a battle-hardened soldier who has served in many campaigns with the Romulan commander and acts as a bit of a bones to Kirk-like counselling dynamic. He has differing views to the Romulan commander in that he has this traditionalist Romulan officer outlook, believing in aggressive imperial expansion and absolute loyalty to the Praetor. Initially, the Star Trek customizable card game only identified him as the Centurion. The second edition gave him the name to Orthan. We also see Lawrence Montaigne play Sub-Commander Decius. Decius holds the distinction of being the first Romulan to appear on screen in Star Trek, albeit with his Vulcan ears hidden behind a helmet. He was also the first named Romulan character in the original series, being one of only 2 named Romulans, the other being Tull in the Enterprise incident. Lawrence Montaigne played the Vulcan Ston in the original series episode Amok Time, and actually auditioned for the role of the Romulan commander in Balance of Terror, but found it a bit difficult to grasp the character. However, he was offered and accepted the part of Decius, which I think he did a good job at. The Romulan uniforms in Balance of Terror showcased a clear militaristic aesthetic, featuring tunics adorned by unique emblems and incorporating Roman-inspired elements such as toga-like shoulder drapes for high-ranking officers. Notably, the production utilized helmets, designed to evoke the appearance of Roman legionary headgear as a bit of a cost-effective solution to minimise the application of the costly and time-consuming ear prosthetics. These helmets, also crafted by Hua Ming Chang, were later repurposed with modified symbols with Vulcan characters in the episode Amok Time. It's interesting to note that the Klingons rather than the Romulans became the dominant antagonists in the original series, due to both practical production considerations and thematic choices. The Klingons' makeup, while requiring its own distinct design, was deemed more manageable within the show's budget and schedule compared to the Romulans' intricate ear prosthetics. Furthermore, the Klingons' aggressive warrior culture, deliberately designed to symbolize, the Soviet Union and drawing inspiration from historical figures like Genghis Khan and the Mongol Empire, lent itself more readily to the action-orientated storylines. Within the Enterprise briefing room, tension was mounting as the officers weighed their chances against the Romulan vessel. Spock's analysis of the weapon's devastating impact on Outpost 4 shields concedes a tactical advantage to the Romulans in weaponry and cloaking technology. Scotty reports that the bird of prey's simple impulse power has the Enterprise having a speed advantage over it. Styles passionately argues for attacking the Romulans, given the historical certainty of war if the Romulans detected any weakness in the Federation, and Spock also advocates going on the attack, saying that the Romulans, if they were descended from ancient Vulcans before they'd cast off their warlike ways, then there could be a real danger here. Bones highlights the millions of lives hanging in the balance based on their next course of action, and after some deliberation, Kirk makes his decision, and the Enterprise prepares for combat as an opportunity avails itself to intercept the Romulan vessel within the tail of a nearby comet. The discrepancy in Balance of Terror regarding the Romulan ship's propulsion, based on Scotty's simple impulse power assessment, can be resolved by interpreting impulse as its primary power source for perhaps standard maneuvers rather than its sole propulsion. Scotty likely was referring to impulse speeds being restrictive while the vessel was cloaked, which implied that the Romulan ship used impulse for tactical maneuvers and warp drive for longer distances. Anticipating the Romulan ship's calculated trajectory through the comet's tail, Kirk orders a course around the comet to intercept the cloaked bird of prey as it emerged from the other side, where its trail should be visible within the frozen vapor particles. The Romulan commander calculated the Enterprise's expected pursuit and believed that the same particles would obscure the Enterprise's senses when it attempted to intercept. However, both commanders' plans failed as they misjudged, and they take evasive maneuvers, leading to them having a mutual appreciation for each other's tactical insights. The Enterprise fires a phaser barrage, striking the cloaked bird of prey, and in the chaos, the Centurion heroically shielded his commander from falling debris, suffering fatal injuries in the process. At the same moment, the Enterprise phaser circuits overloaded, right when the bird of prey materializes and fires its primary plasma weapon. Kirk then orders the Enterprise into a reverse and enter an emergency warp, and although the ball of plasma initially gains on them, it dissipates at long range, lessening the impact when it hits the Enterprise. A deleted scene from Balance of Terror depicted the Enterprise attempting to evade the plasma torpedo. While the Romulan officer Decius gleefully anticipated the Enterprise destruction, the Romulan commander displayed less enthusiastic about it. Additionally, a scene showing the Romulan commander and Decius arguing about the Praetor's orders soon before the Centurion died was also filmed, but didn't make the final cut. Kirk, intent on preventing the Romulan ship's return to the neutral zone, initiates another phaser volley. However, he's not slowing the bird of prey down, and aware of the potential repercussions, he orders Enterprise to cross into the neutral zone despite his strict orders. The Romulan commander, masking his grief at his friend's death, orders the ejection of debris and his friend's body as a diversion. The Enterprise sensors detect the debris, but this distraction allows the bird of prey to slip away. In Balance of Terror, phasers were used in proximity mode, firing pulsed energy bursts similar to depth charges rather than standard beams. This approach intended to hit cloaked targets with an expanding energy field, resulting in a shorter range and reduced damage, and likely contributed to the phaser system's overload. Notably, the visual effect used for these phasers resembled photon torpedoes, a term not yet established in the show's vocabulary until the episode Arena. The Romulan plasma torpedo, whether equipped with its own warp propulsion or drawn in by the Enterprise warp field, appeared to be guided towards the Enterprise, in fact overtaking the ship at emergency warp. However, its destructive power diminished with distance or speed, resulting in minimal damage upon impact, and I guess revealing a key weakness in Romulan tactics that could be exploited. With both ships powered down in the neutral zone, a waiting game ensures, and after nearly 10 hours, Kirk attempts to rest in his quarters. Yeoman Rand interrupts, offering food from the galley. Kirk declines, requesting a coffee on the bridge. During this scene, there's a continuity error. We see him with his right hand resting behind his head, yet when Yeoman Rand enters his quarters, we see both of Kirk's hands resting on his chest in the reverse shot, and when we cut back to a close-up of Kirk again, his right hand is back under his head. This episode also was Grace Lee Whitney's last appearance as Janice Rand in the original series, and she wouldn't be seen again until the motion picture as the chief transporter operator. As Rand departs, McCoy enters, and we get this really special scene where Kirk experiences a moment of doubt and uncertainty when faced with the possibility of war with the Romulans, and he's seeking reassurance before making a critical decision. Gene Roddenberry's last-minute rewrite of this scene significantly enhanced the episode, transforming, I guess, what was a basic strategic discussion into a powerful character moment. Originally, Kirk's dialogue focused on the burden of command and the risk of war. He says, "Why, Bones? I'm a starship captain. This is a decision for diplomats, not one man. How can I decide if we risk starting a war, risk millions of lives?" Roddenberry changed this to a more intimate confession of Kirk's vulnerability. Instead, he said,
"I wish I were on a long sea voyage somewhere. Not too much deck tennis, no frantic dancing, no responsibility. Why me? I look around that bridge. I see the men waiting for me to make the next move. And Bones, what if I'm wrong?"
This pivotal scene, reminiscent of Captain Pike's self-doubt in the cage, provided deep insight into Kirk's character, elevating the episode beyond a simple space battle. McCoy, after a moment, reassured him,
"In this galaxy, there's a mathematical probability of 3 million Earth-type planets. And in all of the universe, 3 million galaxies like this. And in all of that, perhaps more, only one of each of us. Don't destroy the one named Kirk."
This scene is considered one of the best in Star Trek, highlighting Kirk's humanity and the weight of his responsibilities, with McCoy, a trusted friend and confidant, offering Kirk the support he needs, reminding him of his duty as a captain and encouraging him to make the right decision. On both vessels, everyone seems to be acting very quietly and whispering. It's like the episode takes the submarine trope a little too far, as sound doesn't carry in space like it does underwater. But we do get a drop the spanner moment when, after completing repairs to the phaser circuits, Spock accidentally powers up a sensor on the console he's working on, which gives away the Enterprise's position to the bird of prey. With the phasers back in operation, the Enterprise scores more hits on the Romulan vessel, which sees the Romulan commander pull the fake debris trick again, but with a nasty catch. Instead of a body, a nuclear warhead is released with a proximity fuse. The Enterprise detects and fires on the warhead at point-blank range, but the massive explosion causes damage and casualties, setting the Enterprise adrift. When the nuclear device detonates, on the Enterprise bridge, Uhura actually lunges to the port or left side, while the rest of the crew are thrown to the starboard or the right side. Rather than finish the Enterprise off, the Romulan commander decides to head for home. With the Enterprise phaser station manned solely by Tomlinson, our nearly newlywed, Scotty reports its operational status. Kirk then orders Styles to support Tomlinson, who mentions he's had some past experience with phasers. It was also great to see Uhura switch off her communication station and shift to the navigation hot seat, which really cements her importance on the Enterprise bridge. To bait the crippled Romulan ship into crossing onto the Federation side of the neutral zone and provoke a final confrontation, Kirk orders the Enterprise to play dead in space. Despite the Romulan commander's reservation about his ship's damaged state, Decius pressures him, reminding him that his duty is to destroy the enemy, compelling him to reluctantly order an attack to finish off the Enterprise. The scene is further heightened, as many are during this episode, with Fred Steiner's distinctive Romulan theme, which plays ominously throughout. Meanwhile, concerned for the crew's safety, Spock checks on the phaser team. Styles, still harbouring prejudice, coldly dismisses Spock's assistance, asserting that they can handle the situation independently. However, a critical phaser coolant leak suddenly erupts in the phaser control room, incapacitating both Tomlinson and Styles. Just as the Romulan ship closes in for the attack, Kirk orders phaser fire. Spock then rushes back to the phaser station and at the last moment manages to fire the phasers, delivering a decisive blow that severely damages the bird of prey, leaving it adrift. Visual contact is then made between the vessels and Kirk observes the Romulan commander severely injured and rising to his feet to acknowledge Kirk. Kirk offers to beam any survivors up, but the Romulan commander refuses, saying,
"I regret that we meet in this way. You and I are of a kind. In a different reality, I could have called you friend."
He then activates the ship's self-destruct, with Kirk watching with a sense of loss as the bird of prey is destroyed. In a deleted scene, Kirk is shown saluting the Romulan commander before he destroys his own ship, which was a moment of respect and acknowledgement for their shared humanity. In the sickbay, Kirk learns that Spock was responsible for both the phaser fire and Styles' rescue. Styles is humbled and amazed that Spock saved him despite his prior prejudiced remarks. However, Tomlinson was lost, so big surprise, it wasn't a happy ending ever after for our newlyweds. Before Kirk departs, Yeoman Rand arrives with news that Starfleet has endorsed his decision to enter the neutral zone, citing the extenuating circumstances after he'd been keeping them updated with tactical reports throughout the episode. The episode ends with Kirk consoling Angela Martine, Tomlinson's grieving fiancée, alone in the chapel. He speaks gently to her, saying,
Never makes any sense. Both have to know that there was a reason.
Martine, through her tears, promises she'll manage and departs. Kirk watches her go, then exits the chapel, walking along one of the Enterprise corridors. As a postscript, we all know that Angela Martine is going to be fine, because in the very next televised episode, Shore Leave, she seems to have forgotten all about Tomlinson and is pursuing Rodriguez on Beta Omicron Delta 3. Balance of Terror is a powerful allegory for the Cold War and the deeply rooted anxieties of the 1960s it created. The episode's central concept, the neutral zone, directly mirrors real-life divisions like the Korean Demilitarized Zone, the Iron Curtain, and the 17th parallel in Vietnam. These real-life zones represented tense standoffs between opposing ideologies, just as the neutral zone separated the Federation and the Romulan Star Empire. The high-stakes conflict between the Enterprise and the Romulan warship, with its potential to ignite a full-scale war, reflects the ever-present threat of nuclear escalation that defined the Cold War. Beyond the military parallels, the episode also explores the social and political tensions of the era. Lieutenant Styles' prejudice against Spock, fueled by the Romulans' Vulcanoid appearance, reflects the bigotry and suspicion prevalent during the Cold War. Kirk's leadership, characterized by rational decision-making and consultation, mirrors that of President Kennedy's approach during the Cuban Missile Crisis, emphasizing the importance of careful deliberation in the face of immense pressure. The episode's enduring relevance lies in its exploration of the human cost of conflict and the ever-present danger of escalation, themes that continue to resonate even in our own time right now, demonstrating how Star Trek uses science fiction to comment on the pressing issues of its day. I guess you'd say that the Romulans attacked the Federation outpost near the neutral zone to test Starfleet's resolve and its tactical abilities. I guess the Federation's reluctance to retaliate against the Romulan incursion stemmed from a desire to avoid a costly interstellar war. Kirk's orders restricted him from entering the neutral zone, prioritizing containment over immediate retaliation. So what would have happened if the Romulan bird of prey made it back to Romulus? This could have emboldened the Romulan Star Empire, I guess, with concrete proof of their technological superiority. It could have triggered an accelerated arms race and escalated tensions with the Federation. This would have dramatically increased the likelihood of an open conflict as the Federation scrambled to counter the Romulan cloaking technology and plasma weaponry. And the Romulans, fueled by their confirmed advantages, would have likely pursued some more aggressive expansion, shattering the fragile peace and reshaping the political landscape of the Alpha Quadrant. The Strange New Worlds episode A Quality of Mercy gives us an intriguing look as to how things could have gone differently in this same encounter with the Romulans. In Balance of Terror, Kirk's decisive actions, employing tactical deception and quick thinking to, outmaneuver the Romulan warship, established Starfleet as a formidable force. This demonstration of strength deterred further Romulan aggression, fostering a more cautious respect and maintaining a fragile peace. Conversely, A Quality of Mercy portrays Pike's attempt at peaceful negotiation with the Romulans as a catastrophic failure. His diplomatic overtures were misinterpreted as weakness, triggering a full-scale Romulan invasion and a devastating decades-long war. This alternate timeline underscores the importance of perceived strength in interstellar relations, suggesting that Kirk's assertive tactics, while seemingly aggressive, ultimately prevented a far greater conflict. William Shatner and Mark Lenard excel in this episode, driving the narrative as the commanders of their respective vessels. Both actors effectively portray the burdens of command and the weight of responsibility and their unwavering commitment to their missions. They're isolated from their mutual command structures and they have to engage in a strategic chess match, demonstrating tactical acumen and psychological warfare. Despite their adversarial roles, a mutual respect emerges by the episode's conclusion between them both. Well folks, that brings us to the end of this deep dive dust-off for Balance of Terror. I really hope you enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure reviewing this seminal episode for you. Let us know what your thoughts are on this story in the comment section. How does it stand the test of time? What are your favourite memories or special moments from it? Get the conversation started. Well, until next time folks, live long and prosper, and goodbye for now.